is a team effort. The second thing I would say that makes the business side work for us, we carve out intentional time to be friends and intentional time to talk about the show.
I love that.
Great point. Great point.
Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to the 1% of Juju podcast, where we teach you the practical steps to live your life like the 1%. Y'all can see I am back today, and I am joined by some wonderful guests. I'm going to dive right into introducing them because I don't want to waste no time, and they're very special guests. I'm really excited about meeting them. We've been introduced by some mutual friends, by some connections that were actually on the podcast in the past, but I've been really looking forward to having them on the show today. So welcome to Bryan and Josh from the Jigsaw Podcast. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the platform.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having us. We're excited.
Yeah, man. Glad to be here. We're excited about this.
No, for sure, man. We were speaking pre-show a little bit, and I was saying that I have listened to a few episodes in the past few weeks that got me really fired up. I really get excited about some of the things that we're doing. I'm always get really excited by some of the things that some of the brothers are doing in the community, and especially when you guys are keeping it organic and things of that nature. So I really will encourage people here of the 1% of Juju family to go check them out afterwards. But for today, y'all want to tell people, what is the Jigsaw Podcast, who you guys are? Maybe we'll start with you, Josh. Give you a quick introduction, and then we'll dive into you, Ryan.
All right, for sure. Well, I am Josh Rogers. I am a Memphis native. That's very important. Husband, father, friend, trap music aficionado. I am just pretty simple guy. Under all of this is really pixie dust and just blackness. But no, for thing one or one half of the Jigsaw Podcast, and I guess I'll throw it to my brother to introduce himself.
Yeah, I am thing two of the podcast. We have a great time. I'm Bryan here, as we say on the podcast. It's a great day to be black every single day, right?
Yes,
so
sir.
White will cry.
Right. And for those that don't know, I'm from California, so I'm from the West Coast, so, west side of the great United States of America.
Not from the entire state.
Not from the entire state. From Pomona, California. But it's a vibe. It's a vibe.
Where is that specifically? Because I know that people that are from exactly. Because people that are from the Bay Area, I do not associate that with people that are from Southern California. So where would you stand?
You've done your research, yes. So Northern California, Southern California is two different worlds, right?
Yeah.
So I'm from Southern California.
Okay, got it.
So if you've ever heard of Los Angeles, I'm pretty sure you have. I'm 30 minutes east of Los Angeles. From where I'm from. Yep.
Makes sense.
Yep. So Southern California kid. But I live in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, excellent. Now. Excellent. Is that how you guys both got in contact in Atlanta, or how did that happen? How did the Jigsaw Podcast, let's talk about that. How did the Jigsaw Podcast become the Jigsaw Podcast? How did that connection become a reality?
Oh man. So how did me and Bryan met almost 15 years ago.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a lowly little freshman at Morehouse College, and Bryan was almost tasked with, making sure I got to church. We met through a mutual friend.
Right.
So it started off as just rides to church and
my bucket, my trash car.
Oh my God. Exhaust fumes nearly killing me every Sunday. Not just the ozone layer, but me.
Yeah, it was a bad car.
But no, it started off as just legit just rides to church, Bryan doing a friend a favor, me being appreciative. And we just organically developed a brotherhood. It just kind of kept growing. The story of the Jigsaw is kind of complicated if we're going to keep the book. So I've always been an avid podcast listener. And wanted to have a platform to kind of express my opinions and thoughts about culture and Black life, and want to figure out a way, how we reach an audience and all these different types of things. So I attempted a podcast, I think, with Bryan and two other of our friends. They kind of
sure did. It did.
I attempted a podcast with another friend, really close friend of mine, that kind of fell flat. And then the closest thing that got materialized into a podcast was one that I had with another podcast partner. So we got as far as like marketing materials, doing test shots and logos and everything. And we had some real, when it was time to almost launch, we started to identify some real major creative differences. So much so that it put our, me and that person, to put our friendship to the test. And I was like, what? I really like you. So let's salvage our friendship and X this podcast. I mean, because you can't always do business with your friend, because essentially this is a hobby, but it's a business, right? You want it to grow, whatever. So from there, I was like, you know what? I'm not letting this stop me from podcasting. We were in the middle of a pandemic. I had gotten recently laid off. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do this myself. It's gonna be interview style. I'm gonna bring on a guest, and I'm a very strategic thinker. So I was booking people all the way through. Like, this started in May of 2020. I was booking people all the way through like August. Like, I had interviews lined up. And Bryan had been a guest on the show twice.
Yep, got it.
And one day I was just like, you know what, this would be a lot easier with a co-host, and not just from a business standpoint too. That's somebody else to help carry the burden of cost, and but just also someone to help you, think through like ideas, and the format of the show hasn't changed. But so imagine doing a lot of this, to like talking about current events kind of by yourself, kind of like talk radio, just by yourself.
100%.
And and it wasn't bad or boring.
No, it was a good show.
But it was it was like, this could be enhanced in a way. Yeah. And me and Bryan, of course, are friends. We had great chemistry on the 2 shows that we did. And when I approached him about it, his episode was the highest rated episode that I had. Okay. Wow. And that said a lot, because I had some other people with, I'm using air quotes here, bigger platforms, but it was just, those episodes just hit with the people. So I approached him, I think one Saturday, I was like, can you talk? And he was like, yeah, I can talk now. And I was like, I wanted to get settled. But no, I called him and we kind of discussed it, and he was game, and I'm gonna pass it to him. So I think September-ish. Of last year, 2020. So I think I did a podcast, was it 3-4 months by myself? And then so September, we introduced Bryan to the show, and we've been rolling and growing ever since. And I'll let Bryan pick it up from there to kind of see, what he want to add to.
You pretty much told the story. Like, we came together and it popped, it grew, it's just continuing to grow. It's an amazing time. We have a great fun time on the podcast. It's really just 2 brothers talking on the podcast, and people listen, people give us DMs and emails and everything, tell us how great we are and how much they love it. So it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, I love that, because as you were speaking, Josh, like, it's weird how much I could, and people, I love that you share all that, because people probably had no idea, but for myself, like, I can relate to everything you were saying. I was just like, I understand the business aspect that people don't always understand, that you can't just go into business with your friends and just assume that it's going to be okay. What are some of the things that you 2 learned along the way? Because it sounded like you guys would get great friends as well, as far as the difference between being great friends that get along on the podcast, but also doing business together and having that organic conversation and understanding, we got to separate business from our friendship, right? Because obviously it's fun to do business with one of your friends, but also getting down to business and being serious about certain things. What are some of the things you guys learned along the way?
We're 2 different people. Josh is stronger than me in terms of administration, in terms of like vision and focus. In terms of even though he says he's an S, like a strategic, he's also A, like action. Like, I can give Josh an idea. Like, for instance, there's something he's dropping next year. Like, I made a small mention of a certain idea. And within like the next day, he had a whole vision plan and process already ready to go. Where me is like, I'll think of an idea, and I'm just like, it's just an idea, right? So it was good, the one that we already are friends, and then kind of understanding how each other personalities are. So I know Josh can probably rely on me for certain things. I can rely on him for certain things. And the good thing about Josh and I is there's no ego. Like, we are great friends. We are secure in ourselves. And that's a lot what we talk about in the podcast, is understanding our insecurities, understanding our strengths, not being intimidated by another man or even person in general, but not being intimidated by your brothers, holding each other accountable. Josh definitely will be like, I said we'll come up with a title of the episode, and he'll be like, that ain't it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I can't be mad and be like, oh man, that was a great idea. Like, no, if it was, it's not a great idea. And then on top of that, understanding your partner's heart, right? For sure. Josh's goal, right? Just like my goal, our goals align, is for the Jigsaw Podcast to be one of the greatest podcasts that there ever is.
For
but
sure.
Then not just that, but on top of that, grow the business, grow the brand on top of Jigsaw Podcast. So all these other ideas that we have on top of the podcast, if I have an attitude and act like my ideas are great and I can't allow Josh to be like, nah, bro, that ain't it, then that's not going to allow the business and the brand to grow.
Yeah.
So I think that's the one of the things I've learned, even though I don't think we've ever butted heads in terms of like vision or anything like that. I think we've trusted one another. We've been honest with one another. And I think that has helped along the way. And I don't know, Josh, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. I think the two things that I will add is that, one, it was really important for me, like starting the podcast, is that I don't hoard that over Bryan's head. Like, this is my show. And I brought you on. You know what I'm saying? Like, at this point, when I decide to have a co-host, we are equal.
We're in this together.
Great point.
Right? So I understand that, yes, you know, if you go back into the archives and go early May 2020 up until a certain point, yes, you're only going to hear me. Right. But like, the only time we referenced, you know, I would say that kind of BB before Bryan period is is when we're like having conversations like this, right? Or we're referencing some point or conversation that we made, because there have been times where we've had certain guests on the show and we brought them back, and I was like, hey, you remember when, you know, such and such was on the show, we want to bring them back, or we talked about this when I was by myself, you know, what does this conversation look like now with you? You know what I'm saying? So like, it's kind of, it's a reference point more so than it is. And I always kind of make sure that I'm very clear about that this isn't my show. This is our show. And what we're building is, you know, is a team effort. The second thing I would say that makes the business side work for us, we carve out intentional time to be friends and intentional time to talk about the show.
I love that.
Great point.
So
Great point.
like, when we're like just catching up and talking, like if a podcast idea comes up, then it comes up. Right. But for the most part, we're just catching up and being brothers. Yeah. But we carved out specific, like even I think over the last month, we've been meeting via Zoom, like bi-weekly, FaceTime, bi-weekly, like, and legit talk about podcasts. And we don't start getting personal until we're done.
Right. That's true.
So like, we carve out intentional time to brainstorm. And to Bryan's point, like, he's, you know, I've suggested titles. He'd be like, no, or he'd be like, Josh, we need to have a title like this that speaks to this. Right. And I'm like, you know what? That's dope. And there'll be things like Bryan is saying, like, there'll be things that I will envision, but he will help me ideate in a place to where, let's call it that. And I'm like, you know, bro, because we have some things that we're dropping. Maybe we can share it at the end when you ask us that. We have some things that we're dropping in 2022. And I was like, I had an idea, but Bryan was like, you know, this is what it should be because of, you know, A, B, and C, 1, 2, 3. So it's like, I think the depth of our friendship allows us to understand each other's strengths. And we kind of are, and Bryan and I are very vulnerable. We kind of cast down the societal, like, this is how men and friendships are supposed to look. We're very vulnerable, very transparent with each other. So not only do we know each other's strengths, we know each other's weakness and vulnerabilities. So we're able to, like, really, you know, pour into that. And again, knowing Bryan's heart. So if I'm in a work zone, I don't think Bryan takes it personally if I'm like, you know, straight at it and here. And the same thing with Bryan. Like, we were texting about some business stuff today. He was like, this is what it is. This is what you need to do, Josh. When you do the ABC, I'm like, bet, let's figure out a time. Let's get it done. So like, there was no, what you mean? This is what I need to do. It's like, no, Josh, this is what you need to do. So I think that, and it doesn't mean that we disagree. I just think, but because we're such good friends, we know how to disagree. And that's what makes it magic.
No, 100%. And I can kind of see that in, you know, how organic you guys, this conversation comes about. And I think that there's some great teaching pieces for our listeners, because I have listeners here that are like very, very young and getting started in that business journey and understanding really how to go about, you know, going into business with somebody else. I think that some of the things that you guys shared here are going to be absolutely great for those people. But you guys spoke a lot about vulnerabilities and about sharing your insecurities and things like that. One thing that you guys speak about on your podcast is almost like a full review of the show Insecure, right? So I haven't watched the show, but like, how did that come about? Because like, that comes up a couple times, and you guys go quite in depth into it. It just came to mind right now. I just needed to touch on that.
Well, one, we are Insecure stands. Yes. And just just me, Bryan. I want Issa Rae to have an affair with me. That's what I want. That's my goal. She's newly married. It's time for her to have an affair, and I want to be the person she has an affair with. But Insecure is a show that I think we both fell in love with. In terms of the show's beautifully, it's an intelligent show. It's a beautiful show. It's casted well. The storylines are, I don't want to say immaculate, but they're pretty good in terms of understanding the culture, understanding the demographic, understanding our age. Yeah. I think we've said plenty of times on the podcast that Insecure is us in terms of we can put ourselves in that environment, in that universe, and see ourselves in the midst of those people or in those characters. I personally, I really love the show because it's in Southern California, so it kind of gives me a certain feel of being there, the palm trees, the weather, and understanding all the culture behind it. But then the music is just beautiful, and it's just well done in the cinematography. So I can go on and on about Insecure. Josh, you want to add, I guess, to it because you have your own feelings?
No, I know. No, in terms of how we feel about it, I agree. I don't have anything to add to that. Only thing I will say, the reason why it probably comes up so much is not just, I mean, we are like super fans of Insecure and Issa Rae, but and I don't think we've said this yet, but the Jigsaw podcast is about, and the reason why it's the Jigsaw, if you think of a jigsaw, you think of puzzles. So the Jigsaw podcast is literally a podcast about two Black millennials trying their best to figure out the craziest puzzle piece ever created. That's the Jigsaw of life, right?
100%.
That's the show. And if you watch Insecure, it is literally these 30-somethings trying to figure out life. So every time we have a conversation, it's just so easy to reference.
Relatable,
They do such a good job. And although me and Bryan are married and no one Tiffany and Derek are, but we see ourselves like even in past versions of ourselves, we see ourselves like Issa right now, about and this is how it comes up, right? So Issa was in this space where she did like this career path. Her trajectory was different. I went from a space to where I didn't completely leave my industry, but I made a hard pivot, right? So I'm in a very similar space, 32 years old, and kind of, I'm not entry level because God forbid that, but like, but really kind of pivoting, right, in a new career and starting over in a sense, right? So I'm still in housing, but I'm on the diversity, equity, and inclusion side, right? Versus where I was on the policy and, making sure, there were this many units and all the project management, all the different kind of stuff. So like, I see myself in in Issa Rae in that way. And to Bryan's point, for him, it resonates about being home, and I'm pretty sure he can probably identify a character like where he is. And even like with Molly, navigating those spaces and trying to figure out, how aggressive should I be, how ambitious should I be, like we just it's always relevant in some parts of our, in conversations. Definitely. And, and because we love it and because it's a show that's right now, it's easy to recall. Because if you listen to the show, we bring up Martin, we bring up, me and Bryan are big TV and culture fans. So we bring up Living Single, shout out to, Living Single, Different World, all the things, Girlfriends. And it's just, and because we're culturalists, I would give us that, those kind of things are easy to recall, but Insecure by far, it's a mutual favorite. Mutual favorite. It's top 5 and it ain't number 5.
Yes, without a doubt.
No, I love that. And that actually brings me into my next question, was like, what does it look like for you guys? And I would say that one thing that I appreciated when I listened to just Josh, like your intro of your first podcast, introducing the podcast and what it has become, with Bryan obviously being added and trying to figure out this Jigsaw life, right? I'm an avid consumer of content out there, right? Like, because I want to grow my platform. I also want to see what's out there, what other people are doing. And I think that a lot of content out there has become inauthentic. And one thing that I really loved about your content was that it was so real. It was just two Black men coming up, being vulnerable and talking about real life situations, about what's going on in a day-to-day and what it looks like for real to like be a millennial and trying to figure all these things out. How would you guys describe that experience? Like, what is it like to figure out this big puzzle of life, I guess?
I'm gonna go back to Insecure. There was an episode this season when Issa Rae, who's doing well in life, right? She's doing well in life, created her company, all that kind of stuff. She's doing a panel discussion at her alma mater, Stanford University, and they're asking her this question about life, like, what do you feel about where you are in life and all that kind of stuff. And she really was just transparent and honest and said, I really don't know. Like I feel like I'm on the right path, but I really don't know.
Yeah.
And I can.
How do we ever really know?
We never really know. And I can sit here married, have a nice, great paying corporate job, have a great car, beautiful house, beautiful family, all the things. Have great friends, right? Great friends. And I still every day wake up and say, am I on the right path?
Right.
Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing in life? Do I feel confident in what I'm doing? Some days I don't feel confident. Some days I don't feel my best. Some days I don't feel like I know. There was another name for the podcast we were going to have with our friends. I'm not going to say that, but we really, as much as we think that we have it all together, we think we have it all together, we really don't. Right. And that's kind of what, to me, the jigsaw is we wake up every single day, even though things may look good, right? Somewhere deep down inside of all of us, we're thinking to ourselves, like, dang, like, am I doing this correctly? Like, and then you think about yesterday, like, what could I have done yesterday that could have made today better? Right.
Yeah.
So it's all of these insecurities, all of these issues that we have, and then all the therapy that we got to go to, right? So, and that's a major part of the jigsaw. And self-care and all that stuff. So I don't know if I answered your question, but to me, that's what the jigsaw is. The life of it all is really, even in times when it seems like things are good, you still really have no idea where you're going, and you're really just trying every single day just to do the right thing, make the right choice. And some days you do, some days you don't, and you're always going to continue to question that.
No, absolutely. And Josh, I want to get your answer as well. But before you go, I want to mention that it's so important, because one thing that I found out is, like, when you look around, there's, we live in this world where with social media around and things like that, everything seems like a highlight reel, right? But it's very rare that you get people that like look like they have it together, at least, share some of the vulnerable moments of their life. And it is very inspiring to see you guys do that. And it is very helpful, because that's a reality, right? Like, we all go through these hard times, and we all go through these realities. And it is important to have someone to come out and really do what they love, to actually speak about, we go through the same thing. It's a reality for us as well. So no, I appreciate that from you guys. But yeah, Josh, I want to get your answer as well.
No, sure. So I think, in addition to everything Bryan said about, figuring it out and being vulnerable in that space, I think that level of vulnerability and transparency has kind of opened up doors to understand what's necessary, because we've been guests on other shows and had guests on our shows. And, and when we just kind of casually say, just how this kind of is turned into a side conversation, that was like, especially with other women, it was like, oh my God.
We're like, what?
You hold your brothers accountable? Or, oh my God, you're vulnerable? Like, oh my God, you say this. I'm like,
you go to therapy?
Huh? Right, you go to therapy, right? Like, this is our normal. And what we're understanding is that, like, I'm not saying that there are no black men out there, or one, or two black men out there who don't have great podcasts, because they are out there. But what we've also noticed is that there aren't any, like, at least that we don't know of, right? There's not a lot of spaces for black men to be like, this is my community, to feel like I belong. Or to feel like, what I'm saying, I can be my authentic, I can show my weaknesses in this space. And although we're not hosting like therapy sessions, like me and Bryan, I think, make it comfortable to be these, like, we have a portion where we do listener letters. And this most recent listener letter, we had a gentleman who basically is now identifying as bisexual, and he had and his wife found out, right? And the fact that he was able to write that in to two cisgendered hetero men, right? And felt comfortable asking us, where he wasn't judged, he wasn't ashamed. And me and Bryan, affirmed him and loved on him and gave him the best, as we say, the best non-professional therapeutic advice that we could give. But I think that's just a testament of what we've built, right? And so and sometimes, I don't know about for Bryan, but for me, there's a pressure to, like, there's like, we're bearing this cross almost of so many other black men who's like, I don't have a Bryan, or I don't have a Josh to go to, and y'all are my best friends in my head, who I listen to you and I feel like, you know what, I can, it's okay to be this, it's okay to be that. And the thing about me and Bryan, not only are we honest with each other in terms of like business, but we're honest in who we are. We don't fake the funk about that, right? So like, Bryan is an avid sports fan. I am not. Right. I am not. But it's nothing. And we actually have a parody on the show where we kind of deal with that. But like, it doesn't take away from who I am to him. And it doesn't take away from who he is to me. But, there are some men whose relationship is based on sports. That's how they met. That's all they talk about. Right. And there's a lot of men out there like that. Right. So like we found the beauty of our own individual humanity and love each other for who we are. And that's just, I tell Bryan sometimes while I'm in individual therapy, like getting behind this mic is therapeutic as well.
For sure.
It gives me space, right? And I'm sure Juju, you can, attest to it. It gives me space to just kind of be vulnerable and talk and to get it out and to articulate. And while we don't put all of our personal business out there, right? It does gives us space to, to kind of, show the community, hey, like we may look like we got all together. We're just as flawed. And again, it goes back to the theme of our podcast. We are literally trying to figure this out. Most of this stuff that we've gotten right has been accidentally correct. Like we didn't shout out to what our podcast was going to be, but it was like 4 or 5 of us. It was accidentally correct. Like it wasn't anything that like, I mean, some stuff you plan to write out, right? But a lot of stuff, like think about life. Like you'd be like, oh my God, I just got this right. Like I got it right. It worked out, right? You know what I'm saying?
I don't have the formula for it.
I don't have the formula. I'm just because both of us are parents. Like you can read all the books you want, but them kids are totally different than what them books say. Somehow you just end up getting it right. Like, and I'm gonna let it go after this. Like when my kids used to be fussy, I was singing Negro Spirit. I did it to our nephew. I just met our nephew. One of my best friends had to and I sang the Black National Anthem to him when he started getting fussy. And that baby calmed down. I just got it right. There's no book that's telling me that. I just fell into that method. Like somehow the ancestors calmed these babies down. They do. and while that's a facetious example, but that's life, and that's how we approach the podcast. Like these are the things. Like these are the things we're figuring out. So we bring people on. Me and Bryan sometimes a lot of times have conversation between ourselves. Like there have been plenty of times we've had epiphanies on the show. It's like, oh my God, oh my gosh, that's the answer. You know what I'm saying? And that's what it is. And we're not afraid. And one thing we also say is that we're committed to learning and unlearning.
Yep, I was going to say that. Yep.
And unlearning, because there's some stuff that we've learned. We grew up in, and me and Bryan came from very Pentecostal, strict backgrounds.
Very Pentecostal.
So there's some stuff that we grew up with that was just like, girl,
that is not the answer.
That is not it.
Right.
Right. And we want other people not to think like us, but come to your own realizations and truths. Yeah. Right. And whatever feeds you and benefits you, like, let's do it. And let's love each other and embrace each other, regardless of all the other stuff. So I think just our personal growth manifests itself through our weekly, what we do weekly on the show.
Man, I absolutely love that. I think that we could talk about that all day long. And there's like something very beautiful to what you guys said as far as, realizing like the learning, the unlearning. I think that it's important for so many people.
Definitely.
I love that. But I wanted to touch a little bit more on, the business aspect of your podcast, because what you guys have built, and it's something that I'm still learning, having a team and, having tried to do the with partners in the past and now being, more independent, but with a team, but like thinking about bringing people on as well. How do you guys prioritize time when it comes to, you guys spoke about both all having, the corporate environment job, having a family, being married, kids, all of that. It takes time. How do you find time to prioritize and make sure that, you put time aside for a side hustle? Because, a lot of, my listeners, what they're interested in is the financial aspect, right? Like the taking control of your life and things like that. But sometimes it seems like we're too busy, but clearly there is time if you care enough about it. But how do you guys make sure that you're not only committed to each other, right, but you're committed to yourself, as far as you told yourself, I'm going to build something great here. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. So how do you guys approach that?
I can go first, I guess. I'm under the mindset that we have 3 major resources, and if they are managed correctly, your life can be somewhat great, right? That's time, money, and relationships.
Wow.
Okay. And if you manage those 3 resources, because everyone is given a certain level of all of those, right? We're all given the same amount of time, and if you manage your time, then you can earn money. But then sometimes you need to develop relationships, we can earn money. So they're all kind of intertwined, right? And it's really understanding the importance of all 3 of those resources, right? So time, Josh and I both, Josh has multiple jobs. I'm going to say that. He does a lot of things.
Right.
Josh has multiple jobs. I'm sure you can go into those. But I have my one job that I have is time consuming because I do trainings, I do traveling and things of that nature. But I also understand that I have relationships I have to manage. So wife, kid, but then also I have a business relationship I got to manage. Best friend Josh, we're a business partner, but also best friends, and I have other friends I got to manage. And then on top of that, like money that takes, that I'm using from my actual corporate job, right? I use that to fund the business, right? So all of these things matter, right? And if my wife gets pissed off and doesn't like me, then she's gonna be mad, and then the podcast is gonna be bad because I'm gonna feel some type of way. So it's really understanding how all three of these things fall in line. In my mind, relationships are the most important, right? Happy home, great business partner, great friends, because with bad relationships, then I probably won't feel good about life, right? Then on top of that, understanding that my time is very valuable. So I got to invest my time into my friends, my family, my loved ones, but then also make sure I'm investing time into my job, which pays for everything else. So I guess I don't know if I answered the question, but it's really understanding that the resources that you do have, and then understanding how all of them help one another out, and how you need them to be aligned properly for great success. And I don't know if I answered that, but I'm gonna throw it to Josh.
No, that's wonderful.
Yeah, no, I think balance is something that is a word that is often thrown around haphazardly.
Yes.
But I think balance only becomes reality when it is based in intentionality. And I say that because you can, LLC Twitter will tell you don't sleep.
Right.
And those who sleep, are poor, and all, even Steve Harvey said, ain't nobody sleeping 8 hours. Steve Harvey, I remember hearing that.
Exactly. I was going to say that.
Okay. Rich people don't sleep.
Right. And when I don't get 8 hours, trust me, it ain't because I didn't choose to, it's because I was, one of those nights. It was just one of those type of nights. But I think the beauty of it is that we do have the same 24 hours, but if I sleep 8 of them, right? You know what I'm saying? I have quite a bit of time left, right? To do what I need to do it the other 16. And so while I do work a 9 to 5, and because I'm salary, sometimes it's 9 to 6, 9 to 7, whatever. It's more
all day, every day.
But if we're all honest, how many times have we been at work and took throughout the day, maybe 2 hours of the day on Facebook? Maybe not at once.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
But throughout your day, you start adding
throughout
it
your
up.
day, like you start adding it up. So for me, what I started doing was, it is intentionality. So when I'm slow, because Bryan is right, I do have like 3 actual paying jobs. So when it's and the other 2 are writing, so I'm a part-time journalist. So it's like, you know what? If I'm slow, I'm going to take an hour to do research for this article. Or I'm going to write like the intro. And if it's a 500-word piece, I'm going to knock this thing out, because writing is just one of my superpowers. So 500 words, I could do that in 45 minutes real quick. So it is about figuring out how you allocate time. And maybe that means I'm not as social on social media. Maybe that means I don't respond to your text message immediately. But what it does mean is that I make time. And a lot of people look at me like, Josh, how do you do it all? Sometimes I don't know how I do it all. But what I do know is, like, I look at now, if it ain't on this calendar, it don't exist. So I live and die by that calendar, but it is about intentionality. So when you're talking about building a business and having a side hustle, you do your 9 to 5, but maybe your lunch break is a working lunch where you got your salad, your meal prep or whatever, you know what I'm saying? And you're literally, even if it's not doing the work, you're doing the research. So you get off, you're able to like execute, right? Or it's like for me and Bryan, and I said we were doing these, bi-weekly meetings. We've done those in the middle of the day. So what we did was we found time doing our workout where we had light time. Like, you know what? Let's block this off on our calendar and knock this out, because we know at 5 o'clock, my family's at home, his family's at home. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, so now we got to jump into dad and husband mode, and we don't have capacity. Now our capacity isn't free again until 9. I don't usually go to bed until 11. We put our beds down, at average 11. So I put my kids down at 8. So I got from 8 to 11 to now work on my side hustle, or if I choose to decompress, because what I found out, a drained Josh is not a productive Josh. Right? No. So you can talk about this lack of sleep. I am a real creative type of person. When my juices ain't there, I remember for one of my journalists, one of my gigs, my writing gigs, we were in this really busy season, and I had to write like 5 editorials in like 3 days. And when I got the editorial 3, I was like, I have no idea what to talk. And I thought they were terrible. I thought they were the worst pieces I've ever written because I was just typing words. Yeah. And they came back was like, Josh, we love these. I was like, you do. And I say that to say because like I was in a space where I needed rejuvenation, but I found the time to do it. So the intentionality is, okay, this is what I want to do. Let's identify what it takes to get this done. And this is my strategy. So I'm gonna give this to the people. So when I do that, I identify what resources I need, what types of partnership, particularly, potentially do I need. What does it take to go into it? So if it's building out an event, right? What are the dates? What are the times? Is there going to be a venue? Am I going to have sponsorships? Am I paying for this by myself? Like I build out this checklist, and sometimes on my lunch break, you know what? I'm on peerspace.com. Me and Bryan just had a live event maybe a month or so ago. I'm on Peerspace finding events. So that's done. So I shoot those options to Bryan. That's done. It's done. Right. The next I'm like, Bryan, we need a photographer. We need a DJ. And Bryan was like, bet, I'll get the photographer. That's off my list. I'm like, I just saw a DJ. So we do an Instagram poll. Hey, anybody know any DJs in Atlanta? They've done the work. So now all I got to do is contact them, get a standard email and send it to all them jokers. Best price, best quality is gets to get. Right? And that's it. So it's really about not overthinking it, but developing strategies to help you. Because if you OCD like me, I hate notifications on my phone. So when an email comes through, I'm checking it. Right. So it's about building strategies that play into the things that you already do. Like my sons play basketball. Instead of just sitting at their practice, twiddling my fingers on Facebook, what emails can I be sending? What research can I be doing? Right. And even on a personal level, I got a holiday gala coming up. I literally bought every piece for my upcoming outfit on my phone via apps. Like I don't have time to go shop. I don't have time for that. Right. You know what I'm saying? So you're figuring it out again, back to the podcast. We're figuring it out along the way, but it takes that level of intentionality to literally maximize every second that you have. And it doesn't mean that I'm not on social media, because me and Bryan, and our other friends, we got a group chat in the text, we got a group chat on social media. And we send the memes, we send the pictures, we send all the things. And so it doesn't mean I'm not having fun, but it does mean is that I am doing multiple things at once. And maybe everybody isn't good at multitasking, but if you can find ways to integrate your business into your daily routine, I promise you that the side hustle becomes a lot easier to manage. It is really about intentionality and integration. That's what's key.
Great point.
I love that. That's a great point, because especially if you think about, what you pointed at your phone, but what they really allow us to do is to have access to our work and to be productive at any point of the day. And you can either use it as a tool or as a curse, right? Like where you can be sitting there wasting time all day long, just scrolling through mindless posts, or you can use it to your advantage and be like, well, let me knock something out that normally I wouldn't, because I would have to be sitting in front of a computer and that nature. So that's actually wonderful. That kind of answered my next question, which was, some of the things that you've learned along the way and some of the other challenges. I don't know if there's other things that you guys have learned that you guys want to add, but outside of that, what has been the greatest joy along this journey? Because I know for myself, I every day, every time I get to come here to record this, it is mine. It is me. I talk about what I want, how I want it. I get to help people and help people grow and help people become the best versions of themselves. What for you has been the greatest joy along this journey?
Bryan, can I be sappy real fast?
Go for it. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yes.
We talked about vulnerable. Come on.
Right. So I'm going to throw a challenge. I think the biggest challenge is that me and Bryan are a team of two.
Yes.
We just recently got somebody to help us out with social media. But she's on a volunteer basis, so we don't pressure her a lot and things like that. But we're pretty much a team. So in terms of editing and recording, it is all on us. So that is one of the biggest challenges, is really, not becoming overwhelmed with because a lot of people think, Juju, and I'm sure you know this, they'll be like, podcasts, you just go on the mic and you talk. No, these are structured conversations. So while they're organic, they're like, me and Bryan have a docket. You sent us a list of things like, hey, these are things I want to talk through. So like, you know what I'm saying? So like, these are very structured conversations. Now, the organic part of it is that we ain't got no script. We know exactly what we're going to talk about.
Right.
Shout out to reality television, right? It is scripted in that way. So that's the biggest challenge, is kind of figuring out, how do we do this? It's just really a team of two, because it's a lot to handle.
Right.
But the biggest joy, I think, is that while Bryan and I, were really great friends and best friends before this, I would personally say, I think we've become I have now a greater appreciation and love for my brother.
Yes,
now than I've had pre.
That's
because
beautiful.
now, like, we talked almost every day, but sometimes it was just via our group. Me and Bryan now have more individual time together.
Yes.
And we have opportunities to learn more individually about ourselves. And as we tackle certain topics, there are some things that, not because we were hiding, that just never came up in kind of friendship conversation that now come up. And when the podcast ends, we was like, me and Bryan would literally spend almost sometimes another hour talking and conversing after that mic, is no longer hot. So I think the biggest joy is doing it with somebody who I really love and appreciate.
Definitely.
And have the opportunity to continue to grow, because we say this all the time on the podcast too. Friendships are relationships. And if you don't cultivate them, then your friendships will die. So just the ability to continue to speak life and to breathe life into something that was already great has been really the biggest joy, and for us to grow in this thing together. You know what I'm saying? I think, and it's been beautiful to kind of see Bryan, because Bryan, I'm gonna put him out there a little bit. Isn't a social media head, kind of shies away from the spotlight, but to see him kind of step into his own personality and like really develop this voice, like, it's been beautiful to watch. And like, I push him in that regard, like, bro, like like Bryan is not a comedian, but his comedic timing is pretty on par. Because he'll say things that'll be like, "What?" and it sparks me, and then we get to go in and flow in, and it goes crazy, right? So that's been right. Yeah, exactly. We were talking about something. Bryan said, "Spit in her mouth." And I was like. And I was like, and swallow it. And so it's just, we keep going. And so it's been the greatest joy to kind of have almost this telepathic friendship that is developing. And it's been beautiful. And I'm so excited to see where it continues to grow.
And Bryan, same thing. And you were going to say that, and I was actually being retrospective, is the fact that, like, if I listen to the first episode I was on to the episode I'm on now, like, the level of comfort and the show's about being authentically you. And I cannot honestly say that on the first episode I was on, that was authentically me.
Wow.
Right. The fear of what are people going to say, being, not really wanting to be vulnerable completely. So I will say, having this podcast, the joy of self-growth, but then also, again, like Josh said, growing with somebody, right? Growing with a friend, breaking down the stereotypes of what what masculinity is, or what male friendships are, the ability to say that I love you, and the joy of the opportunity of people seeing and hitting us up in DMs and the letters, and people acknowledging, like, man, like, I listen to the show every week, and people come to us and tell us how we've literally affected their lives, and they're telling us what episode we said during this time and that place. And we have people that legit listen to us every single week and commend us on, like, man, if it had not been for y'all, I would not be this. Or we have ladies saying, like, man, I want y'all to be on a bigger platform, when then maybe some more brothers can see how brothers should be. So I think the greatest joy, one, has been being able to grow in relationship with my brother. Two has been, I don't know if this is grace, but another great joy has been to see the effect that we've had on people. And then the third one really is I feel like the ability to be an example of what, vulnerable Black men can be. And actually be able to tell that story and show that in a medium where in most cases we're probably looked at as the outliers. But I think if we dig deep down inside of a lot of Black men,
this is a lot of us.
A lot of us are like that. It's just people are afraid to be authentically themselves because what society says that we should or should not be.
And I love so much of that, so much of what you guys mentioned. And, I really commend you. And I can tell, how real it is, and, how genuine it actually is from just sitting here and speaking to you guys. And, when you mention the people that are listening in, that are continuing to tune in and that send a positive message, I don't think that people realize for content creators, because you guys mentioned it, right? Like, there's a lot of time, there's a lot of effort that is being put into this. Like, everything is structured. Like, people don't realize, everything that goes on in the back end, like the editing, the recording, the investing in better equipment, all of that you're trying to do to try the spending time to strategize, and all of that is to eventually have a positive impact. So when people come back and they're like, hey, you've really helped me in that way, it really like, I know what you guys are saying, like the content created, it just means so much. Like people think like, oh, I'm just shooting a quick DM, just to say thank you. But for us, those are words that they cut deep and they mean a lot. So we really do appreciate you guys listening out here. So keep doing what you do. Let me ask you this. I could continue this conversation all day long, but what for you guys, what is the vision for the podcast? You guys spoke about some of the projects coming on. You guys spoke about, some business aspects outside of just the podcast. What's the vision for you guys long-term? What would you guys like to get accomplished with this?
A retirement. No.
Bruh. Truth be told, yes.
Yeah.
If we just talking on a podcast and just do that and not have to work these 9 to 5s, even though we thank God for a job.
Yeah.
I think I would love to be able to just wake up and just talk to people all day. But Josh, you can talk about the vision.
No, I think, and to Bryan's point, yes, I actually really love my job.
Yeah, me too.
I'm really, me and Bryan are both really like pro-Black, and, having the ability to kind of teach and, correct white people all the time on the ways in which they should treat Black people better. It just brings me great joy. But it's a lot of work, right? And it's very structured and it's very like, still corporate and whatever. Right. So while I would probably, and Bryan knows me, I'll probably figure out a way to do it all. But, I think one of the ultimate goals is to get to a space to where if we do have a 9 to 5, it's because we want it and not because we need it, right? And I don't know about Bryan, but I know I've never envisioned myself. I've always been the guy where I respect entrepreneurship, but I've never been the guy like, I just want to be an entrepreneur. I am okay working my 9 because everybody needs a 9 because the entrepreneur gonna need teams and people eventually, right? Yeah, so we can't get rid of 9 to 5, and you know what I'm saying, because even everybody who going for entrepreneur gonna need a team at some point. Even if you outsource it, right, you need somebody.
Yep.
So I've been okay. So while I've never discouraged the entrepreneur journey, I just kind of be like, maybe I'm good, doing my thing. But what I will say, it would be really dope to be in a space to where, and I don't want to speak for Bryan, but I think we've both had the conversation around, I don't know that we have to be Charlemagne the God in the Breakfast Club.
Right.
But on the flip side of that, to grow the podcast to a place where, the Jigsaw is recognizable in a bunch of spaces.
Yeah.
And not necessarily for celebrity, right? I think it is, the more we grow into it, it is because we understand again that the spaces that we've created are necessary, and to bring that to life, right? To make that tangible. So one of the things that we're working on that I won't give away too many details is just that, right? To take our experience and make it kind of this weekend immersion into Black culture, leaning into the idea that you don't earn rest. Rest is your right.
Right.
And to celebrate excellence from creatives, right? So almost like a pause and a reset for celebration. And that's another thing that me and Bryan do. We shout out a Black business or a Black accomplishment every week.
Yeah, I've noticed
that. Talk about self-care every week, right? Because that's a part of figuring it out too. So that's one of the things that we're doing. So look out for that whenever those details drop. What we will tell you is this: details will be dropping early 2020. The actual thing will be dropping in the summer. So look out for that. But the overall vision of the podcast is to become, a staple in Black culture. And just, for us to not be the voices, but a voice that speaks to specifically Black men and kind of destroy all of the negative narratives. We'll be a part of the work. Let me say it that way, because we're not God, but be a part of the work. We're not the only resource. Let me say it that way too. Be a part of the work that kind of, mitigates and alleviates those negative stereotypes about Black men and Black people in general. Anything you want to add, Bryan, about?
That's definitely a thing. I think, and I'm kind of coming to epiphany right now. I think it's the fact of, I think if the Jigsaw could do anything for Black community, Black culture, to change the narrative, to just change it, right, for the better. Either that being Black men, going to therapy, Black men taking care of themselves and going to the doctor and living longer. Black men treating Black women, better, right? Black men being better fathers. Black men mentoring Black men. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we can just make some type of dent or a change. Black men being more vulnerable. Black men caring about other Black men, right? Black men understand that you can hug another Black man and then not be like considered gay. All those weird things that we've been taught when we were younger. If we can change those things, and then on top of that, I think if we can add some different places and spaces and culture, some ideas, like I think we talked about, like, a biz, like a bookstore or something like that. Some things that we can do that can really put a dent on culture. And like Josh said, be a voice within the culture, within the community. And not necessarily, like I said, Josh, to be a celebrity, but sometimes you need celebrity to, have your voice be heard. Yeah. So whatever it takes for us to just help change culture and push culture forward. I think that's what the Jigsaw is here to do. That's what we want to do.
It's about impact at the end of the day, because maybe you're not saying like, oh, I want to be a celebrity, but if you have the power to impact, 1 million people, then that's just that's just 1 million lives that you can touch and affect in a positive way. So, I think that we sometimes, like, people get caught up in the I just want to be famous for the sake of being famous. But when you're doing great things like you guys are doing, I don't think that there's anything wrong with saying that you want to have a positive impact on as many people as possible, which I absolutely love. But man, this was such a great conversation. There is so much insight left here, but I pride myself here in shamelessly selling things to my listeners. So anything else you guys want to plug in, or you guys, where can people find you? What do people, what should people be going out there and looking forward to outside of obviously what's coming in early 2022?
Okay, we can reach us. You can follow us at the Jigsaw if you are on social media. The Jigsaw Podcast. We're not on the Twitter. We're not on the TikTok. But we are on Facebook and we are on Instagram. The Jigsaw Podcast. You can follow Josh at I am Josh Rogers. You can follow me at I am Bryan here. We do have a website. It is the Jigsaw Podcast.com. We are on every single platform concerning podcasting. So anywhere you go on, you can find us. We always recommend that you do share, tell a friend about the Jigsaw Podcast if you enjoyed it. Rate us, right? 5 stars or nothing at all. We don't want anything less than 5 stars. You're wasting your time if you're doing that.
Yeah.
Leave an amazing comment, whatever it is, either be funny or be pro-Black, whatever it is. Leave a comment there. Let us know how great we are doing, and also support a Black business, right? Supporting us. By supporting another Black business, you're supporting us. We believe in supporting the culture. Tell a Black woman you love her. And I don't know if there's anything else I need to add to that, Josh.
No, I would just say, like, there's a few things that we have coming that we haven't announced and we're not ready to announce yet. But I will say, at the top of 2022, like, be prepared for some major announcements. So again, follow us on. Make sure you're following us on Instagram, because it's like that's where you'll hear first. I will say this though, in terms of December, Bryan and I kind of do some thematic months. We haven't even said this to our audience yet, but we'll give it to you. Is that one of the things exclusive content, right? So last year during Christmas, we did the traditional thing. We talked about Christmas and gifts and blah blah blah. And I'm a Christmas freak. So if you listen to the next few episodes, you're going to hear, and I will bust out I haven't bust out in song on this show yet. I will bust out in song at any moment. So you're going to hear all the Christmas thing from us. But one thing me and Bryan was like, you know what? People always wait for this New Year, New Me thing.
Yep. You're absolutely right.
So in December, we were like, you know what? Let's equip people with resources and tools to become better versions of themselves before the new year starts.
Right now.
Right. So we're having conversation around like getting the best job, how to better manage your finance, how to better manage your relationships, right? Kind of the 3 top things that people really look for when they start new year. I want a new job, I want some more coin, I want a bay, right? So we're having some really dope people to come on the show. To come help us navigate those topics, and it's going to be fun. We're going to have a really Black time, and it's just going to be really, really good. And in that, you'll still get some holiday treasures and things. And me and Bryan do a Jigsaw holiday giveaway, Ultra Black
Ultra black gift pack.
When I say it's black, it is black.
It is so.
We give away like incense and oil,
ramen noodles,
and do-rags and ramen noodles, like
Yes,
all the
I
things
love
that.
it.
All the
Give
things
it
that go into
Pro-Style
black
gel.
culture, like, Pro
Give it
Style
all to
gel, oil sheen, all the
A
things,
bonnet.
and a bonnet, a pack of popsicles in the winter, all that kind of stuff, right? So, like, but this year we might switch it up. We might switch it up. We might give an Apple Watch. We're not. You know what I'm saying? But no. So definitely be looking out on December, because we always end the year full of surprises.
Oh yeah.
So definitely check us out. But you won't know unless you subscribe.
Yeah.
Right.
And you
Follow us
listen
and all
and
that
you
kind of
and follow us and all the different kind of stuff. Yeah. So those other things. Oh, and you can catch me too, because I write. So I'm ashamed to plug myself. And IamJoshRogers.com. And you can, follow my blog and read what I have to say. And again, if you're not leaving positive comments on there either, then don't leave any.
Yeah. Let's get up out of there.
Get up out of there, because I will delete them. But no, for sure. Like, and I have some personal things coming up. Bryan actually has a project coming up that he's developing and working on. So make sure you're following us individually too, because we got some things that we want to push culture forward with. For sure.
Excellent. Guys, you guys heard them. Make sure you guys spam them with follows, with positive comments. This was such an inspiring conversation for us today. We're gonna log off, but as always, I wouldn't be myself if I didn't remind you guys to go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. We are now on YouTube, so go ahead and subscribe there so you guys can see the prettiest face on the internet. And go ahead and leave a like, positive reviews. I need that. Keep spamming my comments, my DMs. I really appreciate that, guys. And make sure to share the podcast with someone you care about or with someone you don't care about. I don't really care as long as you share it. But keep doing that, because I do appreciate that. But I really appreciate these guys for being here for the conversation today. And as always, guys, make sure that you're taking the steps today to ensure that you're 1% closer to your goals than you were yesterday. Peace, everybody. Have a good one.
Yeah.